Alrighty, I hope you're having a great day. I'm still fighting off a bit of a cold here, but powered through to get some more Duskmourn sealed in. This is for the Arena Direct event, which is the Win-A-Box. And we had some solid opens, I'd say, here. A few standouts in Ghostly Dancers, Valgavoss Onslaught. But really what I realized immediately upon opening the rest of the pool is that I had a ton of removal in red-black, and so I immediately gravitated in that direction. I think in hindsight I probably should have paid a little bit more attention to if I could have fit Ghostly Dancers into this pool as well. We already ended up going 4 colors to fit in the backside of Steam Sauna, for card advantage, and then the green for the Valgavoss Onslaught since it was a single green pip. But we did have a Boros dual land here, and just because of the sheer power level of Ghostly Dancers, plus in hindsight with how many of the rooms I end up playing with 4 copies of Glassworks, 2 Painter Studios, and the Roaring Furnace and Sauna, that I probably should have considered Ghostly Dancers a little bit more before just dismissing that extra color. It would have made my mana a little bit more awkward, but I think it would have increased the power level of the deck fairly significantly. So I think that's one thing in hindsight that I probably shouldn't have just dismissed as quickly as I did. But basically here I end up in red-black splashing. Again, the 2 cards I already mentioned, and I think I'm just in the mode here of figuring out, okay, what are my cuts going to be? Because I am very light on threats, and so I end up in this position here, and I think what I'm looking to do essentially is use all my removal and then try and win the game with Valgavoss Onslaught, a Shattered Yard, half of the Glassworks, sheer card advantage out of the Steaming Sauna, but I'm basically playing a super controlling deck in the sealed event. So we'll see how it goes. I don't think that this is necessarily something that's super powerful in this format, since there's a lot of creatures that just 2-for-1 naturally that are just relatively strong anyways. But we give it a try. And so heading into game 1, I think honestly this was a bit of a weak keep in hindsight here, but after seeing the opponents open, there was no way I was winning this anyways. They lead on Oblivious Bookworm, they bin an Oculus, and then reanimated on turn 3 with a Surgical Sweep. And so I'm staring down a Bookworm and an Abhorrent Oculus on turn 3. And so there could have been some of my removal that would have gotten me, I wouldn't say out of this, but stemmed the bleeding a bit more. But I don't think there's many decks that are beating an Abhorrent Oculus on turn 3 when the opponent's on the play. So that one was quick and out of the way there. Heading into game 2, hopefully don't run into an opponent who is doing something that quickly again. Because I'll say that I think that's the one downside for this heavy removal based deck that I was playing here, is that it was missing some of the early removal. So there weren't any Winter's Interventions, there weren't any Scorching Dragonfires. It was all just the really strong mid-game removal and Glassworks and Final Vengeance and Murder and Betrayer's Bargains that I had a ton of. And so people getting under me was going to be a problem. So in this game, first few turns we just made some trades, but basically end up in a position now where I've essentially cleaned up their board. I'm still at a healthy life total now, and I've got card advantage online with Disturbing Mirth in play, the Sauna sitting there waiting to get unlocked. I already have the double blue here because my Bana base was excellent for fitting that in, basically for free. And so now I'm just in the mode of clearing out the board. Here I decide to just pay the extra for the bargain because I want to keep the Mirth around for a good sack target with Final Vengeance. I don't mind sacking the Glassworks, but knowing that the Shattered Yards is one of my ways to, well, one of my few ways to pressure the opponent's life total, I decide I'm probably better off keeping the Mirth for Vengeance. So this turn, because the opponent didn't apply any pressure, following me removing their 2/5, I decide to use this as my opportunity to get my recurrent card advantage online with the Steaming Sauna and just get a good blocker into play in the Undead Sprinter. Unless they've got exile-based removal, this is going to be a huge problem for them and essentially turn into another card advantage engine for me. So, take it slow. They lead out with another threat. I think here I was probably a little hasty going with the Final Vengeance. I probably would have been better off in hindsight using the Glassworks. Assuming it resolved, in this case they end up using Get Out to bounce both of their cards, which is quite strong for them, and I end up with a Miasma Demon, so it worked out. But my safer line could have probably been Glassworks into Return the Undead Sprinter. But it goes fine here. They end up swinging into the 2/2. I think this is a little loose because I actually ended up binning another creature, and so they should have been fairly aware that this was some sort of creature under there, and I guess they were just hoping that it wasn't something with 3 or more power to trade with their 3/3. But at this point, they're out of cards. I've got 3 more pieces of removal in hand. I've got a card draw engine online, and I can start pressing the table. So at this point, the game is essentially over. It'll take me a couple turns to close it out, but I think at this point I'm in basically 0 risk of losing this game. So it goes in a couple more turns, but then end up winning game 2. So heading into game 3, I've obviously already taken 1 loss, so I don't have a ton of wiggle room anymore, and this is definitely going to be a bit of a testing game here. So early on, it just took it slow. At this point, I decide I want to get in with the Amalgam. I've got 2 other pieces of removal, and I really want to be getting Surveil triggers. Looking at this again, knowing I had the second Amalgam in hand, it might have just been better to get in with Amalgam, see if they want to take the trade anyways, because all I really care about is the Surveil there, and then I could always play the second Amalgam, so I think a slight misplay for me here. At this point I decide to bin the Fanatic of Harrowing, because I'd rather have my 6th land drop to play Snatcher next turn. I think Snatcher, honestly, in this deck was quite strong because it was another card that allowed me to 2-for-1 and have a big body in play. At this point it's looking fine for me. I'm going to offer up the trade now with the Amalgam, make sure they can't draw any cards off of Locker Room. I'm hoping to get a land, which I find, and so I'm just slamming Spectral Snatcher and feeling great at this point. They could still have removal for it, but it's again going to 2-for-1 them. And so they do happen to have the removal for Snatcher, which is a little bit unfortunate for me. It doesn't come this turn, I believe, because they just want to Piranha Fly. But it still is very uncomfortable for them. So they have to vanish for sight the Snatcher after I hit them for 6. At this point I sit here for a while thinking about if I want to sack the Snatcher to Betrayer's Bargain to get rid of the Piranha Fly. I decide to sack the Glassworks instead to get rid of Piranha Fly, just to deny them the card draw off Locker Room. And then that way I can put the Snatcher back on top and draw it the following turn. So I think this was the right line in this situation. Just made sure that they lost their card advantage engine effectively, because they're not going to draw cards without their Piranha Fly in play. They do end up following up with a Tunnel Surveyor, and then they end up having a counterspell for my Snatcher as well. So now I'm looking like I'm in a very difficult position. I need to find something off the top that's really going to bring me back into the game, because they're now drawing cards and pressuring my life total. Thankfully, I find my own card advantage engine in the Steaming Sauna, and so I can't kill either of their creatures this turn because I only have 1 card in hand. So they're going to get to draw more cards, but at least now I'm going to keep pace with what they're doing, and they're not pressuring me too hard. I've still got, 4 more turns to try and stabilize the board here. And so basically what happens is we play out the mid-game. There's a bunch of bounce effects that they employ. You'll see here that they managed to return the bottomless pool to their hand, but now I've got a full grip of cards. I've got a couple pieces removal. I've got a Disturbing Mirth, a Painter's Studio for more card advantage. And I'm feeling like, okay, I can just basically wipe their board at this point, develop 3 creatures, and I can take control of this game. And outside of some massive bomb for them, I'm not too worried being at 4 life, staring down a Glimmer Light, effectively, with 3 creatures in play. And so that's what we end up doing. We end up leaving the Glimmer up, and then playing out a pair of 2/2s and an attack in the box on defense here. I don't get in with the Sprinter, just because I figure the way I lose this game is by getting too aggressive and somehow get punished with something I don't expect off the top of their deck here. But we thankfully don't see anything. They spend their turn doing nothing, and I can clear their 2/2 off the board with Miasma Demon and get in for lethal. There was a few different ways I could have presented lethal here. I also had the Defaced Gallery with Painter Studio that likely could have found its way there, but I decide to just take the line that also puts a flying threat into play should they have something that keeps them alive here. But I just get in, I activate the attack in the box to give it 6 power this turn. That's 1 more win under the belt. So this next game here, I'll just lead off. We end up losing this one, but I think this is one that's worth taking a look at for me because I don't think I played the lines properly. I had to mulligan here, which was what I needed to do. I didn't have the colors necessary to play the other hand, but early on in the game, I don't think I take the correct trades, and I end up getting pressured with a pair of hand that feeds. And so here they had attacked their hand that feeds, and I'm basically slow playing this. I'm deciding if I want to activate Painter Studio, but I figure, you know what, I probably need to develop the Amalgam this turn to try and just stay pace and not get run over. They attack, and rather than taking the trade here, I play the Amalgam looking to use it to get Surveil triggers, and this is kind of opposite to how I had played the prior games, and I don't think this was correct. I think I was supposed to use the Amalgam as a removal spell, because what they end up doing, and this is me again playing a little loose here, is they play Ragged Playmate and another hand that feeds, and immediately at this point I should have alarm bells going off that I cannot let them get Delirium, otherwise I'm just dead to the 2 hand that feeds, because I don't have enough removal in hand to deal with those at this point. So I get in there, and then they tank for a while, and they find the correct line, which is blocking with the Ragged Playmate to get 2 types in yard. And this is really bad for me now. I'm in a terrible position. I just have to run out a 2/4 and hope that it can block one of these hands that feeds. But if they have any removal, which they do, they get a 3rd type in yard. I don't take too much damage this turn, but then next turn, assuming they find a land, they can just flip their Weight Room, make a 5/5, and potentially turn the hand that feeds on, because all they need to do is put a land into yard. And so I think this was one that the early game looked rather straightforward, but taking one wrong line here on my part meant that they just snowballed out of hand, and I ended up taking 10 more damage from the hand that feeds, and now I'm staring down 2 menace creatures with not enough removal to deal with it. So I can't play the Miasma Demon this turn, which would line up well to this, and so I'm basically out of it at this point. I try to find something with Disturbing Mirth, but spending my mana doing that basically guarantees that I won't be able to find anything else. So they get in with their 2 hand that feeds. I can only block one of them because it has Menace, and so I think a good learning lesson for me in hindsight here, which is I gotta make sure I remember to play to the purpose of my deck, which is those Appendage Amalgams were essentially removal for me, and I needed to be using them as such. So unfortunate 2-2, but interesting sealed deck with a ton of removal here. I will be uploading another video of this that goes much better than this one, so hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.